Hello, dear Squarespace friends. By now, you will have seen a lot of videos, a lot of blog posts about Squarespace's new Fluid engine. Fluid engine replaces the classic editor, and very much like when Squarespace launched 7.1, there is a lot of upheaval in the industry. And I decided that, unlike when 7.1 was launched, that I'm just going to embrace this change. With 7.1, a lot of us really hated it in the beginning. And looking back, I understand now that this was mostly because this was something new and we had to learn it. And there was just this resistance, when we've been used to doing something the same way for many years and then something new is put on us. We don't always like that, right? And once I really learned 7.1, I actually fell in love with it. I absolutely love 7.1 now. It really changed how I design. It made me fall in love with web design and Squarespace all over again. So when the Fluid Engine editor was launched, I thought, I can see that this could be tricky because essentially we're taking off the guardrails and a lot of people can really mess up their Squarespace websites now. Because that was always the beauty with Squarespace before. We had this out-of-the-box solution. There was, a few things you could tweak and do. But overall, you would retain the look and feel of a Squarespace website. It was hard to mess it up. That isn't really the case anymore now. However, I believe, that if we just take the time to learn, how this works and really embrace it for all the good things that it offers, it can actually help us create even more stunning websites and also more individualized websites. So that is certainly the approach that I am taking, So I have played around with the Fluid engine a lot. I was one of the beta testers. And there is a lot to really like about it. Now, there's still quite a few glitches. That's what often happens, when you launch something new, or when Squarespace launches something new. But they're working on it. I can already see quite a few improvements as to when we started using this, a few months ago. So in this video, I just want to give you a very brief high-level overview of what is it and what can it do. So one thing, for instance, that we can do now is we can have text blocks with a background color, and we can even make this background color transparent. I mean, how nice is this? This kind of layout here required CSS code in the past, but now we can do it right on our page. We can also create nifty layouts like these, where, we have these shapes now for images and for text blocks, where we can snap content right to the edge of the section. And also, what is very popular, we can now have these full bleed side-by-side content blocks, where we have an image that actually bleeds right to the edge of the screen, and also here, in this case, a newsletter block that bleeds right to the edge of the screen. Again, this was something that required, custom coding before, and now we can just do it right in our website, no coding required. I will just give you a little example of, how this works. So let me just go into edit mode. Now, first of all, if you are still using Classic Editor, let me actually just go to one of my other test websites here. You will still see, and let me just go into Edit. You might see this here, the upgrade button. This means that this section was built in Classic Editor and you have the option to upgrade it. You don't have to upgrade it. You can actually continue to work in Classic Editor. You can even duplicate sections that are Classic Editor and it will retain the Classic Editor. Now, eventually Squarespace say that they're going to phase out the Classic Editor. Circle members can still choose between the two. But anyone who starts a new website now, they will always have the Fluid Engine editor. But if you already have a Squarespace website that was built with Classic Editor, this is what you'll see. So take your time. If you want to upgrade these sections, I would recommend duplicate your page. Duplicate your page first. And then disable the duplicated page, so that search engines don't crawl it, and then play around with it, so on your duplicated page, upgrade your sections and then kind of see, how you recreate the look, so basically, here, this is, for instance, a image block which had one of these image layout settings, that we have in the Classic Editor. If I now click on upgrade, you will see, for instance, the background color has disappeared because Fluid Engine doesn't have the image blocks anymore. And many of us were quite upset by this, but you can recreate it all. But it will always try and retain, what you have created with Classic Editor. And for the most part, it will do that. So for the most part, it works really well. But let me just go back to this one here, and I will show you how we're going to recreate this type of section here. So I already have a blank section here. Now what you will notice is when you create a section, you will see in the top left add block. That is where this will always be now. Click on that and this will be familiar to you. These are all the content blocks that we have available in Squarespace. So I'm just going to start with a simple text block, and my FAQ block, apply my styling, and you can see, you have a box now with all these, I don't actually know what you call these things, these little markers here, these drag markers or whatever they're called. I'm sure there's a term for it. And then, this is how you can make the content box, any shape and size that you like. So we're just going to keep this one quite simple. And now I'm going to add another block. In this case, I will add a accordion block. Now, a block, if you are in this kind of view, will always start in the top left corner. So now I just have to drag it below my FAQ text block. And now next I am going to add, so this is a text block with a background and this is an image block. So next up I'm going to add another text block, and again top left corner. So I'm just going to drag it over here for now, and just going to make it a little bit bigger. And if I now go into edit, you can now apply backgrounds. And okay, now the background for this one here is green. The setting is actually in our color section. So what I might do is I'm just going to go to my section editor, go to colors. I'm just going to change my color here to something else. Okay, so let's do that. And now you can see this is now my text block background color. And I also rounded the corners of my text block. So how do I do that? I double click into it to get the text block editor. I had selected the background and I can actually apply a corner radius now. So this is really nice. We can, basically create all these shapes now. And then what I also will do is, since this is a text block, but I want to keep it empty, I'm just going to double space, this way the default text is removed. And now I just have this nice shape here. Next up, I'm going to add a image block. And I'm just going to move that over here for now. I'm going to add my image, and I'll just select an image from the library. And with image blocks now, we also have some options whether we want to fit them to our box or whether we want to fill them. So here I'm just going to fill it, and that will now fill my image to this box here. I can still use the focal point as well. So the focal point still works and still plays a role in this as well. And if I go to design now, I can also apply corner radius now to my image box. So I'm just going to do the same that I did for my text block. And there we go. And now I'm just going to drag this and make this maybe a little bit smaller. And you see, as I do these things, as I move things around my section, you see there is a grid now. This grid appears every time I move my sections around. And the grid helps me to organize my block, within my section. Now, here's a little tip. If you just hit the G button, you will reveal the grid. So you can actually just keep the grid here and then just, hit G again and it will disappear again. So this can help us actually organize our content, on our page. So here, for instance, I have, a much larger one. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger and a little bit wider, and then here we're going to also drag this and make this a little bit wider and maybe like that. Okay, so I quite like that. And then, so I'm just going to hit the G again. And then here, is my, my accordion block. So I can style that as well. I love the accordion block. I mean, that is such a brilliant block that we have now. And, I just love all the styling options that we have here as well. So, okay, but now how do I snap it to the edge of my section? This is where you go into the section editor, and you'll see there is a lot of new things here. As soon as you go into the section editor, it will also reveal the grid. And then we have all these options. We can actually change our gap, distance between the gaps of our grid. And you can even customize that if you want. So the default, is always this one here that you see. Most of the time, I don't actually change that. Most of the time, I leave it. And then we can also select how we fill our screen here or our section. And if you just uncheck that, that is now when things will snap to the edge of the screen. Basically, unselecting this, turning off the fill screen removes all the padding, around your section. But also now you can see at the top here, this has added this to the top of my section. Now I don't want that. I still want to have a bit more space here. So here is another thing that I really like. You can actually use your mouse to drag over content blocks and you can select multiple content blocks now. How brilliant is that? I love this. And then you can just drag these on your grid. So I'm just going to drag these down a little bit, so that I have a bit more space here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my two blocks here. I'm going to select both of them together. And then we're just going to push them down a little bit, just like that. And voila. So now we have this layout. Obviously, there are many other options still, how you can play around with that. And you can, for instance, now, change your background colors and, to, apply different styles and all that. I hope this has given you, just a little taste of what we can do. Now, when you start out, it's gonna take you longer to build a section than with the classic editor. That is for two reasons. You are used to the classic editor, you know how to use it, and also there's a little bit more to the Fluid Engine editor. But trust me, as you use it more and more, you will become faster. It now takes me much less time than when I first started using it to build a section. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you is, how to create this. Now, here is a little bug that we have. There's a little glitch. Because I started editing this page, you can see there is a gap here now below my newsletter block. Now here I have, this is a section where I turned off the full screen because I wanted to remove the padding. But whenever I edit this page, for some reason, the newsletter block, it loses this last, it creates this little gap here. I don't know why it does that, so I've already written to Squarespace about it. So you might find some of these little glitches still. So just pay attention to that, so all I have to do now is just, readjust that, and then it's fine once I save it. How do we do this? So this is essentially an image block, and let me just make this a little smaller. Let me just put these two blocks side by side inside our grid. Now, when you move things around like this, it will do stuff like this, even though I wanted it to be right to the edge here. Again, this is one of those kind of glitchy things that are still happening. So now I have aligned these blocks side by side, and you can see because this one was, taller, it actually adds rows to your grid, and then as you make it smaller, it retains those rows. So if you click into the section, you will see this blue symbol here. This is how you can now right here reduce the rows again. So we can go right back to this layout where I don't have any padding at the top or the bottom. So this is how you start out. You add a newsletter block here, you add a image block here, and you also close your gap. So remember, by default, it's always this gap setting here where we have, and let me just put the G here. So, well, we can't actually see our grid because we have, all of these things here because, we have it to the edge. So, I've just moved this to the edge, but because I have this grid setting here, there is a little gap between my grid blocks. So I'm just going to use this setting here, and that closes the gap. So now everything is edge to edge. And now what I do is I go to my image block until I see my little markers here, and then I just drag it to the edge. And I do the same with my newsletter block. I drag it to the edge, and that's it. So now we have, let me just hit G again. Now we have the edge to edge layout. This is so nice, isn't it? I mean, you can really, let me just show you like a homepage example here. You can really, oops, sorry, I was playing around. Okay. Not really, but so you can really, so lay, put these images and text blocks side by side, have the full bleed layout. And here again, see, here it has this weird gap. So I have to actually go into this and go and just do that. I don't know, it might does that. It's a glitch. And, but yeah, so how nice is that, that we can do this now. And just a few other things, that I wanted to quickly show, with layouts, we can now really play around with the images and our text blocks in our sections. You can create, photo galleries like this or like this. These are just like 3 photos next to each other. With the shape settings that we now have, we can totally overlay things. You can click on a block and you can move it backward, move it forward. If you overlay, whenever you overlay content blocks, you will see this option here to move them backwards and forwards. Now, if you ever use Canva or a tool like that, this will all be very familiar to you. This is very similar to that. So yeah, and then, again, using the background text and using the shape options, there is all kinds of things that we here's just one more example, where you can really, just move your content blocks around your section, and overlay text over other text blocks. So, definitely play around with this a little bit. I know this can feel a little overwhelming when we're first starting out. So just stick to your style, stick to what you know, what you like, and then with time, you can start to get a bit more creative. Now, one last thing that I want to show you is the mobile styling. With Fluid Engine, we actually have a lot more control now over the mobile styling. While you're in edit mode, in the top right, go to mobile view, and we can now actually move around our content blocks. We can resize them, and I have seen a lot of people get very upset about this, because they say, well, this just adds a lot of time to my workflow now. And that is not wrong. But guys, we've been asking for more mobile control for years. And now Squarespace has given it to us. So just like anything to do with Fluid Engine, we just have to kind of get used to it and learn it. But I certainly love that I have more control over the mobile layout. Now, what's really important is to remember a couple of things when it comes to mobile layout. First of all, when you go into mobile view, it will show your content blocks in the order that you added them. I have no idea why. I'm sure there's a technical reason for this. But if you here compare these two content blocks, for instance, so in this one here, I added the accordion block first and the text block with the title last. Whereas in the block that we just built, it's actually in the right order here, but it still looks weird, right? So what do? So the second thing to remember about mobile view is you can change the position and the size of your content blocks, but don't change the actual content. If you change the actual content, that will also change it on the desktop view. So that's just something to bear in mind. So in this case, what I often do is I start to move things around a bit. I want to create some space at the top so that I can now move my FAQ text block up here, and it's left aligned. I could change that now to be centered, but that will also center it on my desktop. I don't really want that. So I could either just, move it around a little bit, to make it look more centered, but you'll never really totally center it. So one thing we can do, here's another little trick. If I go actually in here, we now have the option to scale text. This is really great for titles. So if I click on that, it will now fill the whole width of my content block. Now it also will do that on my desktop view. So here it's actually, made it bigger, because it will, yeah, see, this is one of those glitches. I'm trying now to resize my text block, and you can see I'm trying to do this and it just pushes all my content down. Don't ask why it's doing this. I don't really know. I wanted this here. Now, any resizing here does not affect the resizing in mobile view. Again, the size is separate, in mobile view and in desktop view. So this is one of those situations. I'm just going to select all of this and just move it up again. And now it's added rows to my grid. And I'm just going here again. I'm just going to move this back up. So just bear in mind, this is one of those little glitches that we have. But I know Squarespace are working on these things. Eventually this will get better. Let's get back to our mobile view. So now, I can actually try and center it this way. Now, here's the thing, because my block here in mobile view is 3 you know, grid blocks wide, you know, I cannot center it like that. I have to actually make it 4 wide, because then I can have 2 on each side, and this will center it. So this is how you can play around with these things, you know. So, but it will make it bigger too, because again, we're using the scale setting here. But this is fine. I'm okay with that. And now, you know, I could just move this up. And then as far as my blocks here are concerned, so I'm just going to reshape them. All of this now has no bearing on the desktop. All of this is only for here. And I can again push it to the edge and push it here. Now I could also, you know, do something more nifty. So for instance, I could move this below here, and then I could use my text, and I could just kind of overlay it like this. Now we have all this space up here. This is why people don't like this, you know, because it is potentially more work. But I find, you know, once you kind of know what you're doing, all of this will become a lot faster. So I have just selected all of these, and I'm just, okay, I didn't select this one. Oh. So let me just get out and go back here, find my hand and just move it. Yeah, see, this is, and I'm not going to change my video here now, because again, you know, I think I'm just going to save it. Sometimes you just have to save it and then go back into edit and go back into mobile view. Yeah, so, but now it's too much to the edge, you know. See, this is why, you know, we have to just play around and be a little patient with these things. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit, and move this one down and this one, and then, you know, just move that over here. Although, no, I just want it like that. Spacing is so important in design. And I am definitely one of those people that likes to have balance, you know, with all my gaps and everything. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. So again, I have now all my gaps down here, but now I can just do this. And none of this has affected now my desktop view. So I hope that this video has helped you, you know, to get an idea of what Fluid Engine is all about. I keep saying this, try and embrace it, and learn it, and you can get really creative if you want. If you already have a certain design style, learn how to use Fluid Engine, you know, to recreate your style. And yeah, just try and have some fun, you know. Design is also about fun and enjoyment. And I feel that we can do a lot of that with Fluid Engine. If you are new to 7.1 and want to learn how to build a website in Squarespace 7.1, my express course is all updated for Fluid Engine, you know, so you can learn a lot more things there. Feel free to check that out on my website, kirstenmartin.com. Thank you for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you.